Hello everyone. We're getting into chapter 1, which is a general overview of the course, Intro to Operations Management, and we'll also speak about productivity. This is what I want to focus on today. Learning objectives. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to define operations management, understand why it's important to learn about operations management, identify the functional areas of an organization and how they interrelate, describe an operations manager's job, define the term productivity and why it's important, and then also finally calculate productivity. What are operations? The part of a business organization that is responsible for producing goods or services. Operations management is the management of systems or processes that create goods and or produce services. So every business that you see out there, right, has an operations portion to it. Think of a restaurant. There has to be some kind of operations manual or procedure that defines how that restaurant will run. How many people do they need to have working? What are they cooking? How long will it take them to cook? What else can they figure out? How will they serve the food? Think about McDonald's. There is an operations procedure and a manual somewhere, right? And it's a strategy. They probably have a goal. I've taught this several times where the goal is to have a sandwich ready and out the door once you've placed an order, you should be able to be out the door within 2.5 to 3 minutes. So that's all defined in operations processes and in operations management. Every aspect of a business is impacted by operations. Many service jobs, as I mentioned, financial services, marketing services, and even if you're not thinking of services but manufacturing, they're all impacted by operations. A lot of time when you think about operations management, people are thinking just manufacturing, but we've become such a service world now, right? Everything's about services that, everything's overlapping and operations shows up in many places. Some jobs that you'd find as an operations manager or someone who studied operations. You can be an operations manager, a supply chain manager, a production analyst, an industrial engineer, or an inventory manager. And that's if you decide to focus in this area. But a lot of students will say, but I'm doing marketing and finance and strategy. Why the heck do I need to study operations management for? And the reality is everything overlaps, right? When you think about marketing, operations, and finance, they interact every day and they need to talk to each other every day. So I have a corporate job, and in that job, I'm interacting with marketing and finance on a daily basis. And I'm also interacting with people in manufacturing as well because I'm a supply chain director. So in all of that, you have to understand how other departments work and how everything is interconnected. And the better you understand how things are interconnected, the better you become at your job. Nothing is in a silo. And, that's something I hope you take away from this course is that when you work in an environment or in a corporation, no function is a silo. You have to understand what the other function is doing, not in detail, but a general appreciation for it and how does that apply to what you're doing. And then the icing on the cake is how can you add value to the other functions. So I just mentioned this before. So are you dealing with a good or service? So goods are physical items that include raw materials, parts, subassemblies, and final products. So a good is something physical and tangible that you can touch and see. So a computer, an automobile, a shampoo. Whereas a service is intangible. It's a service you provide. I guess you shouldn't really use the word service to define service. But when you think about air travel, staying at a hotel, they're providing a service. So it's not a physical thing that they're doing for you, but they're giving you an experience. Similarly with education, I'm providing a service by teaching you. So characteristics of services, they're intangible. You have simultaneous production and consumption of that service or experience, and they can't be inventoried. So one of the beauties with service businesses is that very rarely do you have a lot of inventory that you're carrying. It's just a harder sell because physical goods, people can see it and feel it and smell it and decide if they want it. But a service, it's all about how do you deliver that experience. We'll speak a little bit in terms of scope of operations management, and these are some of the topics that we'll cover throughout the semester. I won't spend any time on that today. But the role of an operations manager, right, is to ensure that all the pieces come together and all the work that needs to be done get done on time. The key questions that an operations manager needs to ask is, what resources do you need and in what amounts? And sometimes that's labor, right? So how much staff do I need today? When do the staff need to come? Does everybody need to show up at 8 o'clock in the morning? Or do I have some people coming in at 7? And then, a second shift starts at 3. Things like that. When will the supplies need to be ordered? When does the work need to be scheduled? Other questions are where, how, and who. So where will the work be done? How will the work be done? And who will do the work? Some of the issues that operations managers are facing today are economic conditions, right? The economy is fairly stable. We keep expecting this recession, but it hasn't happened yet, right? Innovating, launching new products, quality problems, especially with products coming in from China and elsewhere around the world. The quality might not be the same as, if it's American made. I'm not saying that's true all the time. It's just you have to be concerned and you have to be careful. Right? And then risk management and competing in a global economy. A cold hard fact is consumers are looking for better quality, higher productivity, lower costs, and companies want to be able to respond quickly to the customer. Right? So not just consumers, but companies are looking for that. And the bar is getting higher and higher. The moment, if you're running a business, the moment you slip up, there's always a competitor waiting to take your position or take your spot. Right? They're willing to take your customers. So the bar is getting higher and higher, and you have to deliver, a better experience to both the worker and the customer in order to remain competitive. We'll skip this one. I don't know how I missed that. So getting into productivity. Productivity is a measure of the effective use of resources, usually expressed as a ratio of output to input. So it's how many widgets can you produce per hour, per day, per week, and so on. Right? It's about tracking an operating unit's performance over time and then judging the performance of an entire industry or country. Right? So way back when, if you think about, back in the 20s, when they just started manufacturing cars, they weren't as productive, right? They were given the limited automation, right? Companies try to churn out as much as they can. But now maybe they were able to produce 1 or 2 cars a month. But now if you look, right, everything is so automated in the videos I created for you. You can see, right, the robotic arms are moving so quickly, right? You can produce 10 cars in a day. And I'm just making this up. I don't have any real numbers. But that's what's changed over time. Automation and improved technology helps us produce a lot more than we used to. So why does productivity matter? Higher productivity is linked to higher standards of living. And, we'll continue to replace manufacturing jobs with service jobs. So it's harder to maintain higher standards of living. And that is something, you read about or you hear in the news where a lot of millennials and younger generations, I guess, are concerned that they're not going to be as wealthy or it's going to be harder for them to maintain being middle class than it was for their parents. And I don't necessarily agree. It's just we'll work differently, right? The gig economy became big in the 2000s, and I think that will continue. People will have one primary job, and then they'll have a gig on the side, like myself. I think that's probably what will happen. I think the days of maybe saying I just have one job, maybe that's limited. I don't know. I just feel like in order to build wealth, you have to have multiple streams of income, and that's something I've just always believed. So maybe it's not really tied to productivity, but it's just what do you want out of life?